In the middle of a farm, scattered bones began to take shape in the form of a human. All the parts came together, and finally, the head sat on the skeleton neck, dangling from one end to the other, and transforming the figure into a tattered dressed old lady. Her eyes were red and her fists clenched. She bit into her teeth and raised her head, revealing a menacing and malicious smile. One could see insects dropping from her skin and hair as she tried walking through the muddy farmland. The woman shook herself and everything disappeared, leaving a beautiful young lady with shiny skin who still wore that malicious smile. Once upon a time, there lived a village called Orusha. The people of Orusha were lovely people. The only problem they had was that the rains hadn't come in a long time. Their farms refused to bear fruit, and those who had any luck at all only harvested a small proportion compared to what they've had in previous years. They were praying to the heavens for rain. One fateful night, their prayer was answered, but something evil came with the rain. There was unbelievable downpour, which made the villagers scared for their feeble homes. The rain felt like ice cubes as it hit the roofs from the heavens, accompanied by lightning and thunder strikes. Everyone stayed in their huts for fear of being struck down by lightning. The villagers were thankful when the rain finally stopped after 2 nights. By then, the whole village was in a water bath. Trees had fallen and farm produce was washed away. They began to renovate their homes, and others worked tirelessly to fix their roofs. Baba Adongo, a farmer in Orusha, rushed to check on his farm after the rain. Unfortunately, he found that everything he had sown got washed away by the rain. There was no sign of his garden, except for the traces of one stick or another that he had used in making the fence of the garden. Baba Adongo felt a presence in the farm anytime he bent down to work, but would see no one once he gets up. He also noticed a very big hole in the farm filled with water, and anytime he tried to get closer to it, he could hear eerie sounds, and the air around it was dense. This made it even more impossible for him to go further and inspect the ruins in the farm. Baba Dongo went back home, but couldn't shake off the thought that something was wrong. Meanwhile, Cheta, one of the vibrant young men in the village, was at his shop cleaning after the rain. He too felt unease after the rain had stopped. He had strange dreams in which he saw a strange woman he recognized. Cheta brushed it off because he knew that woman was clearly dead and couldn't harm him. This particular afternoon, he had to clean, mop and rearrange everything in the shop. It left him very exhausted, and he decided to go home and have a nap. However, Cheta experienced one of such dreams. This time, he woke up to a loud knock on his door. He hesitated, his heart racing. The knocking persisted, growing louder Cheta slowly approached the door, his hand trembling as he reached for the latch. Suddenly, the knocking stopped. The silence was deafening as he turned to look around in the room. Cheta's heart sank with what he saw. The next morning, Cheta's neighbors found him dead in his room, his body covered in whip marks, his eyes frozen in terror. For a week, the whole neighborhood smelled of Cheta's dead body. Women gossiped about it from the way to the market and back. Children talked about it from schools. Everyone had one or two details to share about the mysterious death of Cheta. The soil of Orusha was coming back to its normal state. This was 2 weeks since the heavy downpour. Dents were drying and the land was red as before. Baba Dongo ventured back into his farm again. This time, he went with his wife and children to help gather what they could find and clear some of the land. As they busied themselves working, his youngest daughter ran to him with something in her hand. Baba, look. What is that, Ife? He asked. Baba, look. It's Tusa Weyrey's clothes, she said, raising the clothes for her father to see. Her siblings rushed to the scene upon hearing Tusa Weyrey's name. Her mother seized the cloth to look at it. Hey, Baba, it really looks like Tusa Weyrey's clothes though, she said with a concerned look. But what is it doing here? Ada, the oldest daughter, asked. Where did you find it, Ife? Mama, I saw it lying by that hole over there. She pointed at the now dried hole, which looked more like a rectangular box in shape. Do not go near that hole again, Baba Dongo said with a wary look. The family looked at each other and then back at the dress. Word spread like wildfire in the village. Tusa Weyrey hadn't been seen in the village for months now. No one knew where she was, and so everyone just assumed she walked a far distance and couldn't come back to the village. But seeing her dress left a question in everyone's heart. Where is Tusa Weyrey? And what is her clothes doing in Baba Dongo's farm? Tusa Weyrey was a mad woman in Orusha. She had been in the village for quite some time. No one even remembered her real name. The first time she entered the village, she stopped by a food seller to beg for food. There she farted so loud, everyone in the surrounding heard it. And the smell drove numerous people out of the queue, and she got her food early and was on her way. There and then, she earned the name Tusa Weyrey. Kids ran after her in the village with konkos. They beat and sang while she danced. Even though she was mad, Tusa Weyrey was respectful, and one could see that beyond that madness and stench, Tusa Weyrey was a beautiful young woman. The villagers grew fond of her. They gave her food, and some even forced to bathe her, which she always fought against. Absolutely no one in the village could remove her clothes, which made the whole thought of finding Tusa Weyrey's clothes more suspicious. She would never remove her dress, not even if you offer her the whole food in the village, one woman exclaimed. Just when the village was quieting down on Cheta's mysterious death, now they find Tusa Weyrey's dress abandoned in a farm. Something Something is definitely wrong somewhere, Ma Ekene said as she walked home with her friend from the market. My sister, don't even remind me of that boy's death. My whole compound was smelling like he had died in my house for a week unnoticed. Meanwhile, my place is 6 houses from his, so I don't know if to be happy for that boy's death or sad, Ma Ekene said. You know my last born, Nnamdi? He had been buying those drugs from him, the drugs that make them misbehave, these young boys. He mixes them in the drinks he sells and they buy it as disguise. I used to hate him, but now he's dead and I feel relieved. Her friend looked at her up and down and then nodded her head. I understand you, my friend, but don't ever say that to anyone's hearing. No matter how bad people were, you have to remember their good side when they are dead. Somewhere in the village, Emeka, the school teacher who had a bad habit of drinking, balanced himself from one corner to the other. Emeka had complained to his friend Chibuike about hearing whispers in the wind and seeing movements out of the corner of his eye. He said he felt an airy presence following him everywhere he went. Chibuike did not believe him. After all, he was a drunkard. This particular night, he had gotten himself so drunk that he couldn't make it home. He lay under an iroko tree, and as the night grew dark, he felt a deeper darkness closing in on him. Emeka had a dream similar to Cheta. In the dream, he was coming home from the market one evening, and as he walked home from the market, he felt a presence closing in on him. He quickened his pace, but the darkness seemed to gain on him. Suddenly, he heard Tusa Weyrey's laughter, loud and clear. It echoed in his mind. Emeka's heart raced as he turned to face his fate. He wiped his face to make sure he was seeing clearly and not the bull still working charms on him. He wiped and wiped, but still it was Tusa Weyrey. He removed his sandals and started to run, but no one, absolutely no one could escape Tusa Weyrey's whip. She laughed so loud the echoes were deafening. Tusa Weyrey lashed and dragged Emeka around the whole village. He cried, but no one could hear him. The following afternoon, some boys ran into a dead body when they went into the bush to retrieve their football. The body had begun to rot. Whip marks could be seen all over the body as maggots traveled from his mouth and ears. The back of his head had been burst open. Teacher Emeka's body was found just like Cheta's. This terrified everybody in the village. What was this mysterious killings about? And who was next? Emeka too? Gone? Chibuike cried in his room. Chibuike was the most worried one. As he looked through, Emeka and Cheta were his friends. He had been worried sick ever since Cheta died. Now Emeka, he couldn't sit still. His mother noticed his restlessness and asked him several times, "What is the problem, my son?" "Nothing, Mama, nothing." He wished he could confide in someone. Ola had gone to the city after the incident 3 months ago, and he couldn't reach him on phone to tell him the recent happenings in the village. And Tomiwa was now too serious with his studies and didn't even frequent their base anymore. The base was a place where the young men of Orusha sat at night. Both married and unmarried men came around to relax, share stories, laugh, eat and keep each other company till late into the night before going home. With Emeka and Cheta dead, Chibuike wasn't free with most of the other guys. The young man couldn't also bring himself to confide in his mother, lest he risked everyone hearing about their secret in the village. They promised to take it to their graves. He therefore decided to visit his uncle to seek his help. Chibuike started seeing a dark shadow wherever he went. It seemed to be following him, waiting for the right opportunity to strike. And the strange sounds, he couldn't explain it to anyone. It made it more difficult for him to close his eyes or even have better sleep. Chibuike's uncle lived at Agege. Agege was a little far from Orusha, so Chibuike got a bus ticket for the journey. Unfortunately, he was late to the station and someone had taken his seat. He knew he couldn't go back home without doing something about his problem. He therefore boarded an Okada to his uncle's place. "Welcome, Chi." Uncle Osi normally called him that. "Thank you, Uncle. Where is Auntie and the children?" "They traveled to see their grandmother. You know it's their holidays," his uncle replied. He put on the television and went into the kitchen. Chibuike was mindlessly moving from one channel to the other when he stumbled upon the mid-evening news with the headlines: "A car crash from Orusha to Agege." He couldn't flip the dial, so he listened more. Thankfully, there was no deaths recorded. Most of the passengers sustained serious and minor injuries, the news reporter announced. One of the passengers, in the person of Tomiwa Ade, is said to be in a coma at the moment. She continued. The mention of Tomiwa Ade, his friend, sent chills down Chibuike's spine. This is the same car I had boarded, and I didn't even know Tomiwa was in the same car. What was he coming to Agege to do? His silent thoughts were interrupted by his uncle, who tapped him on the shoulder and handed him a cup of water. "Thank God no one died, though," Uncle Osi said as he made his way to the sofa. Chibuike was still shivering from the news, and the old man couldn't help but notice. "What is wrong with you, Chibuike?" Tears started streaming down Chibuike's eyes. "Uncle, please, I need your help." He fell to the ground. "My friends and I committed a terrible sin. No one knows about it, and we vowed to take it to our graves." His uncle listened attentively. "We raped a mad woman in our village. She was called Tusa Weyrey." "Oh yes, Tusa Weyrey, I know her. But why, Chibuike? Why would you do that?" "Uncle, I don't know," he said in between sobs. "It was the devil. 5 of us, we had left our usual base one night. It was very late and we were tired. Then we came across Tusa Weyrey. We decided to chase her for the fun of it. And when we caught up with her, we didn't know what to do with her. We outnumbered her and she was powerless. Cheta and Emeka were high that day. They brought up the idea that we should rape her. Tusa Weyrey fought us fiercely, but still we succeeded. We went 10 by 10 until she lost consciousness. Uncle, she was not breathing anymore, so we decided to dig a hole and bury her in a nearby farm." Uncle Osi was sitting on the floor now with his hands on his mouth, just to keep from screaming. "You are evil, Chibuike. Uncle, you are the only one that can help me now, else I will die. I think Tusa Weyrey is killing my friends one by one, and I'll soon be next. Please, Uncle, I don't want to die. I am still young." When Chibuike finished, his uncle remained silent, his eyes piercing through the darkness. "We must act quickly," he finally said, his voice low and urgent. "Tusa Weyrey's wrath will not be satisfied until all of you have paid the price. I'll give you something to drink tonight. Then we cleanse this room and the house to keep evil spirits out." Uncle Osi went inside and came out with a concoction in a funny looking bottle. Chibuke opened it, and the smell alone, he couldn't. You have to drink it though, his uncle said. If you don't want to die, you have to drink it. So he closed his eyes and nose and gulped the slimy substance under his throat. They purified their house with medicine in a calabash and lifted some charms at the doorway. For the first time in a while, Chibuke slept peacefully that night. The end. Where are you watching from? And tell me what you think would happen in the second part of this story. Make sure to subscribe and like so that when it's out, you would be the first to get the notification.